Welcome to the Living Big podcast, where we're all about embracing life to the fullest. Hey, I'm Marlie.
And I'm Kylie, and we're thrilled you're here. We explore how to pursue our passions, nurture meaningful connections, and inject some serious fun into our lives.
We're here to show you you're not alone.
And we want to do what we can to ease the stresses of everyday life and help you in your journey of living big.
Welcome back to Living Big. We are pumped. This episode, let me start off by saying this episode has been months, dare I say?
Yeah, months.
In the making.
Uh-huh.
We've been so busy, been in and out of sickness, and we've had to push it off. Plus, we had to read a book before we got started.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's been a journey to get to where we are right now.
And we took a little break from Apple, Spotify, and YouTube this past week and did kind of a test on Instagram Live because we were curious how that would go.
Yeah.
So it's been a hot minute if you're listening on one of those for you to be hearing us again.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yeah.
We are discussing an incredible book that we read. We haven't done this very much. Have we done it at all where we've done kind of a book club moment?
I mean, we've done reviews of books that we loved and hated things like that, but we haven't done more of an in-depth
This
kind
is
of
a deep dive.
We read a book and here are the things that really stuck out to us and all of that.
Yeah. Yes. So we read a book. This is Good Inside by Dr. Becky Kennedy. If you don't know who she is or what she's about, you will by the end of this episode.
Yeah. She's phenomenal and she has amazing resources on Instagram as well. So check her out. I love her daily stories. They uplift me and make me feel better as a human being and a parent. So I love that.
She also has her own podcast. She puts out great resources on her website and things like that. She's just such a good human.
Yeah. She actually has an app now too, all about Good Inside.
Perfect.
So I think there's a program and everything.
Yeah.
If you want to join that. But this is not sponsored by her.
No.
It was just a parenting book. I started reading it and I was like, I think we should talk about this.
We just had so many thoughts about it. You know, a lot of our conversations turn into podcast episodes, right? Via Marco Polo. We sit there, we have these conversations, we kind of talk through things we're learning and kind of figuring out, bounce ideas off of each other. And my husband is not reading it. I don't know if Hiram is reading it, but just the conversations that this book sparked for us.
Yeah.
Incredible. And we just decided we needed to share this because they're too good.
I've actually read a lot of this to Hiram. I'm like, okay, a few pages here. This is super good. And then I'm like, can you listen again? Because there's some more really good.
Yeah.
But I love that our husbands are also interested because it's such a good book.
Yeah. Now we want to start off by saying a couple of really important things before we get into kind of a more parent type of book. This isn't really just a parenting book. It's really an everyone book, right? It's a self-help kind of I would say a reparenting book / therapizing book for yourself.
Yeah.
But a very hopeful one at that. But we want to acknowledge that everyone is doing their best with what they have, with the resources they have, with where they're at, the lessons they've learned, and that everyone is trying to work toward improving their personal relationships. This book really, for us, helped us strengthen our own personal relationships, not just as parents, but I think it helped me strengthen my relationship with myself.
Yeah.
Helped me strengthen my relationship with my spouse, different things like that. It just opened my eyes to a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And
I feel like a lot of this book is really focused on connections and relationships, maybe more specifically familial relationships, but not necessarily just parent to kid and kid to parent. Like you said, spouse or yourself or whatever. But I love on the front, it says a guide to becoming the parent you want to be. And I like the caveat there, it's what you want to make it rather than oh, this will make you the best parent. We don't know what that means. There's no quote unquote best parent.
Right.
But this will make you, if you're reading books like this to help yourself, it can make you more of who you want to be inside. And if you're reading a book like this, it's usually because you want to shift something or you want to learn something, you want to change something or grow something. And so I think that's an important aspect of this book as well.
I love that. So another important thing we need to say, disclaimer, we are not parenting experts. We each have 2 kids, so 4 kids between us. And then, we were once children and we have husbands who were also once children. And we each grew up with different household familial situations,
Yeah.
relationships. Each of us individually are coming to our own families with our own experiences, right? With everything that made us who we are, basically. So we don't have all the answers. This book doesn't even have all the answers, but we're just going to share some of the insights that we gleaned as we read this book.
I think one of the biggest things for me as I jumped into the book that was just amazing, that stood out to me, was it taught that people are inherently good. That's what Dr. Becky Kennedy believes about children. She says that they're born pure and they have inherent value, right? I believe that to be true.
I love that.
I think that everyone is valuable and good inside just because they're a human being.
They exist.
They're born on this planet. And like we said, this is really about deepening connections and growing those connections and getting back to the root and remembering that no matter what behaviors are happening in a house, no matter what emotions are happening, no matter what feelings, beliefs, whatever, we need to be looking down into the core and remembering this person is good inside and has value just straight out of the box. And that's going to help us respond in a much more positive, happy, enlightened, peaceful manner, I think. Because even when I'm like really upset with my kid, as I've been trying to practice some of the things she's talking about by being like, oh my goodness, she's good inside, that she's just having a hard time right now. It helps calm me down, reset, regulate my emotions, and then be able to deal with her in maybe a manner that's not as snippy. I'm not great at this, but I want to be. So I'm going to keep trying and keep apologizing when I don't. But so many parts of this book stood out. I think we could be here for probably like 4 hours. Yeah. And we've already Marco Polo'd for probably hours talking about this. So we're not going to touch everything. No. We're just going to touch a couple of things that really impacted us. And we really encourage you to go grab a copy yourself and read it. And we're going to also be chatting on socials all week about this. So absolutely. We'll have more conversations than what we can just have right here on the podcast. But all humans have an innate need to feel seen and heard, right? Like every single human being, starting from infancy, that's what we want. That's why babies cry when their moms leave the room. Like we want to feel seen. We want to feel heard. Yet a lot of us have grown up in environments where maybe that wasn't fostered. Maybe we didn't have that personal authority or that autonomy in our experiences growing up. I know for many they do, but for a lot they don't. And so then when you become older, what do you do when there's that gap? Many people don't learn how to identify or express emotions either from a young age. And that is huge because we want to be helping our kids become good, well-rounded adults. Right. Who can understand their emotions and feel healthy, feel all of the emotions and be able to process things and regulate themselves. And it's really, really hard to teach a child how to do that if we don't know how to do that ourselves. Right?
Oof, truth bomb number 1 right there.
Yes. It's just the reality. It's really hard. And so the thing I liked more than anything, even than like, oh, I'm going to implement this with my child, was I need to make sure like I can do these things with me first.
How am I supposed to teach and model that to my child
if I can't
do that?
Or if I don't even know what that emotion is that I'm feeling. Then how am I supposed to help them identify, oh, that's anger you're feeling right now, or that's sadness you're feeling right now?
I feel like this needs to be taught in school personally.
Yes.
How to identify feelings and emotions, how to separate those from your thoughts, all of that. It should be taught in school.
Which Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown is another really awesome resource for defining emotions. So then you can start to actually visualize, understand, recognize, identify when those emotions are happening in your body.
I love that book.
So,
it's a good one.
It's so good.
Agreed.
One of the things that stood out to both of us from this book, she calls it MGI, the most generous interpretation. And this is super difficult, I feel like, to do with people.
Especially now that we are adults.
Yeah.
Mostly fully formed.
We have our own thoughts about what people are intending, what they're feeling, what they're believing when they're approaching us, having conversations with us.
This is so counterintuitive.
Yes, it really is.
The way that we are wired now.
And I think societally, like we jump down each other's throats. Like social media is a super hot, targeted place. Everything is right now. We just like jump down someone's throats. We're like, you must have meant this. Yeah. You did mean this. Oh. You hurt me this way. It's like, whoa. Yeah. Let's back up a minute. So I thought this was revolutionary in her saying, what if we practice something different? What if we had the most generous interpretation of other people's actions towards us or their behaviors towards us? And I'm like, ooh, that's really good. We know kids, right? They generally aren't usually trying to like manipulate or harm someone. They're just experiencing life for the first time, and they're just like trying things, and they're feeling things, and they're expressing them. And it's not usually like personal attacks.
No.
At a very young age.
Yeah.
So usually, but it's really easy when they're being really upset for us to interpret that as like, oh my gosh, you're just being a little horrible thing on purpose.
Right. Yeah.
But having this change of mindset where we're trying to say, okay, what's the most generous interpretation I could give in this moment for my child is they're feeling big feelings, and maybe they're hurting deep down, and maybe this has nothing to do with me in this moment.
Most likely.
Yep.
Yep.
And we know that that's not necessarily true for all adults, right? Like, unfortunately, things can get a little bit muddied when we get older. And sometimes there are intentions.
Yeah.
But what harm is it going to do you to still give the most generous interpretation of a given situation? You know what I mean?
I love that.
I think that's really, really interesting. So most people are usually trying to be kind.
Yeah.
If you get a confusing text, a DM, a comment, a hurtful email, maybe try shifting and trying to give the most generous interpretation of what they're trying to do or what they're trying to say.
I do want to point out that the examples that you just gave are written.
Yes.
It's very different when you're face to face with someone and you can see the whole picture.
The body language.
Yeah.
The tone.
Because majority of the time people are not going to be rude to your face.
Yeah.
And even if they are being rude to you online, it's, you can't 100% like, you know, define this as exactly what they mean.
Well, we're from the millennial generation where like a period means you're mad.
Oh yeah. And
But
you have to at least have 3 exclamation points to be like, oh, I'm a nice person.
But what if someone's texting you and they put a period because they just are punctuating a sentence?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, having this mindset where you're going to like, I'm just going to interpret that like generously is going to give you maybe peace of mind for what you just don't know.
Yeah.
And like you said, it is definitely different when you're face to face with someone and they're doing things. But even then, it's like, there's so many things at play with people. And so I just really encourage us to try this. Like, let's just try it. Let's see what could happen when we don't jump to the worst case scenario because we can't actually read minds.
No.
It's like not something we can do. I always thought this would be really cool, like Edward and Twilight.
Like so many like book boyfriends.
Yeah. Reading
What
minds.
is it about book boyfriends? But they all read your mind. Okay.
Because I think women want men to read our minds.
I think that's what it is.
And so we're like, we're going to write that in fantasy.
Yes. Women writing men like them to read women's minds.
I'm like,
There's got to be something there.
It's not that complicated. Just look into my brain and then
Yeah.
But we can't know for sure what's happening on someone's end. And so some things we can try when we are trying to give the most generous interpretation. It doesn't mean let someone walk all over you. It means maybe you try talking to them. Maybe you actually communicate.
Oh, terrifying.
Which is scary.
Scary.
Sometimes I'm like, it's not a big deal. And it definitely depends on the person
Yeah.
that you're trying to have a conversation with. But what if you ask them, is this what you meant?
Yeah.
This is how I received this.
Yeah.
Is this what you meant? 9 times out of 10, if I've done that, they're like, what? Oh my gosh. Absolutely not what I meant. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're good. We're good.
I feel like we've even done that before
yeah.
where we'll like text something and I'm like, ooh, that doesn't look quite right. And then I'll like Marco Polo or whatever to be like, I hope you didn't take that wrong.
Don't get me wrong. We always say, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really think communication is a key aspect. And then some examples from the book. She says, what is my most generous interpretation of my child's behavior? What was going on for my child in that moment? What does my child feel I don't understand about them? And I think this can work especially in spouse relationships as well. Because sometimes you do mean what you said, but you said it because something else way worse happened that day. Or like you're going through a really tough moment, or you're in your freaking luteal phase, or whatever it may be.
That is all over social media and I feel so seen.
I'm like, here I am.
I didn't realize. That's why I absolutely hate myself and my husband.
That's why once a month it's like that sock on the floor that's never bothered me before. It's getting torched.
Yes. Yes, female rage.
So applying these things, okay, why are they saying it like that? What's going on? Maybe what's at the root of someone's behavior or response to you? And can you let the other stuff slide? Or can you ask them about it and then, deal with it from there?
We'll kind of talk about a little bit more about that later, kind of developing that power. That I like to think of it as like a spidey sense almost. Yeah. Evolutionarily, that's a big word. Safety has been the number one priority.
Yeah.
For the last many, many thousands of years.
Yeah.
Right? Is you have baby and you have mother. And it is the job of the mother to physically protect the baby.
And then dad would go out and hunt so that mom could feed baby and keep baby alive.
Continue the human race.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is what it came down to. But we are way in the future now.
More advanced.
We're more advanced. We're
Civilized.
more civilized. I'd like to think so at least. And we don't have to worry as much. That is obviously our still number one priority. I feel like as parents is our children's safety. And we maybe have different things that we want to keep them safe from or whatever. But we now have the capacity. I think that's what it comes down to is we live in a time where now we are allowed to have the capacity to not only care for our children's and our spouses, our families, physical safety, but also their emotional safety, right? We can prioritize. Oh, I just said that. I did say that. Okay. So the kind of spidey sense, I like to think of it as like kind of a superpower because it's something that maybe we weren't aware of, I think, growing up.
I like to think of it as like in exercising terms. It's not a muscle we've worked a lot.
Exactly. It's a
there.
skill.
It's there. I think it's actually built into us. I think we just like haven't really tapped into it and like figured it all out yet. So it's like, it's not been worked a lot. I'm not saying parents of the past were bad. That's not what I'm saying. But not on this level where we're like really want to understand someone's emotions and let them feel them.
I think we live in a very special time where there's still like messy things going on in the world. But I feel like there's something about our generation of people who are trying to be really present, really intentional parents who are trying to work through some of the things that maybe have been passed down through us generation to generation. And again, every parent is doing the best that they can and has done the best that they can. And so we don't want to discredit any of the work that our parents did before us because they did a ton of work, after being raised by their parents, right?
And their parents did a ton of work after their parents. And
generationally,
so on and so forth.
Everyone has just been working to get to where we are now. And so, anywho, the superpower that we kind of are talking about is being able to see past a behavior and be able to discern what's really going on with whoever you're dealing with, whether that's your child, whether that's yourself, because sometimes I don't even know what's going on with me and I'm like, why am I acting like a crazy person? And my husband, right? Everyone in my family, am I able to look at them when they're having like a full-blown meltdown, whatever, a tantrum, my husband's getting real snippy, I'm getting a little luteal, things like that. And to be able to discern what's really going on under the surface, right? With my toddler, I have, a 3.5-year-old and I have a 1.5-year-old. And I have noticed that sometimes he will be mean or he'll try and like push Mila or he'll like yank a toy away from her or whatever. And I'm like, what's going on, dude? And so instead of being mad at whatever he did, or whether he's yanked a toy out of her hand and made her cry or whatever, he's not trying to make her cry. He's trying to make himself seen. He's saying, I'm not getting enough connection. I'm feeling left out. I'm feeling like I need some time with you, mom or dad, or both of us.
Or I'm confused. Is this not my toy?
Exactly.
Like flat up like what?
Right.
I don't get it. This has always been mine.
Yeah. So being able to see what's really going on under the surface, that is a skill that I am 100% trying to work on. When she started talking about that, I was like, oh, okay. I'd kind of like thought about similar things, but she just made it so clear that every behavior, really, every maybe negative behavior, stems from a tough feeling, a big feeling. It can be sadness, it can be anger, it can be loneliness, it can be any of those things. But it usually just means I need some sort of connection or clarification.
Right.
So I wrote down a really funny example here. Just that when I get kind of salty, it's usually because I need some food.
Yeah.
I get too busy a lot. Like this happens almost daily where I get, it's embarrassing to say this, but I hope that someone feels seen. But I just get like going in the morning and I just don't even think about it again because I'm super ADHD, and I just forget to eat something, and I also feel so like wrapped up in getting my kids food, in getting them ready, in doing whatever I'm doing. I need to do the laundry, I need to put the dishes away, I need to do all these things.
Getting the day started is stressful sometimes.
Yes, and then breakfast is out of my brain somewhere, and I get salty. I get really salty.
You're like, man, I don't know what's going on, but I'm mad.
Yes. And then Igor's like, "Ooh, honey, how about you go eat some breakfast now that it's 12:30?" Or he'll ask me, "Hey, like, did you eat anything?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah."
And you would think, with how often that's a pattern that's not just a you thing. So you don't need to feel embarrassed. You think with how often that's like a pattern, we'd be like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit angry, so I need, or overstimulated or whatever. So I need a snack. But it's like, it usually takes someone else being like, munch this.
Yeah.
You're like,
Exactly.
take one bite and instantly you're like, oh, the world's beautiful.
Oh, I don't hate my children.
Rainbows, butterflies.
They're actually adorable. Okay.
Come here for some snuggles.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. That's really true.
Yeah. But that just, Anywho, so being able to decipher even within ourselves, that's a skill that we can work on. Yeah. I just think of the luteal phase, and how we as women, a lot of times we have these very hormonal cycles, right? And that's normal. That is how our bodies are designed. And there's, like a week and a half, I don't know, sometimes it's 3 days for some people, where they literally are like, I'm ready to just run away. I'm ready to punch a wall. I'm ready to do whatever,
Yeah. No, usually for me, before my period, for the week before my period, I'm like real mad.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter who you are, you're bugging me. And then during my period, I'm like sad.
Yeah.
So there's like 2 weeks out of the month where I'm either mad or I'm real sad. I'm like, the other 2 weeks, I'm like, oh, that's great.
Yeah. So if you feel that as well, just know you're not alone.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, why we have some sort of blindness to this, but then it's always some sort of surprise. Oh yeah, that's why
I'm bleeding. That's why I was so ticked off.
Oh my gosh, that's my favorite, when I finally start my period and I'm like, oh.
All of a sudden you feel the cramping and you're like, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm just cycling.
A woman.
All right.
Oh, to be a woman.
So good.
We love.
So good.
Oh, yes. When we're having a difficult conversation, it's not so much what we say. This is another skill that we can work on. I feel like one of the main points of this book, Good Inside, is you are good inside, right? Everyone has this innate goodness that they come to the table with, like you said, out of the box.
Yeah.
Because I unboxed my children when I ordered them from Amazon. And then connection. Connection is kind of the second main point that she talks about, right? So being able to see what's really going on in someone's mind, and then being able to empathize with it, being able to connect with it, being able to say, hey, I see what's really going on here and I feel for you and it's okay.
Yeah.
You're still good inside. I still believe in you. It doesn't change how I feel about you as a human. I look at you as my child having a hard moment. You just had a full-blown tantrum, throwing stuff around, whatever. I can still see that you're a good kid and I love you and we're having kind of a hard time. So I'm going to give you some time. It seems like we're needing maybe some connection.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you know that I love you no matter what. I'm going to let you know, I'm going to maybe like put my hand on you, give you a moment, whatever it is, that skill of being able to empathize with whoever it is that's having a hard time. Yeah.
So many times in this book, she says, you're not a bad kid. Like in her examples, she says, you're a good kid who is having a hard time. And I'm like, that is so impactful.
Yeah.
like remembering again, you are good. You're just having a hard moment because that's reality. That's what we do.
Got a quote to share?
Yes. Quotes to share.
Oh, quotes.
Well, quote. She just says, place your hand on your heart and deliver yourself this important message.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
It's at the very beginning, and I'm like, I love this.
I know.
I am here because I want to change. I want to be the pivot point in my intergenerational family patterns. I want to start something different. I want my children to feel good inside, to feel valuable and lovable and worthy even when they struggle. And this starts with reassessing my own goodness. My goodness has always been there. The person who says that certain damaging patterns stop with you. You are brave and bold. You love your kid more than anything. I'm like,
I feel like even you can superimpose some words that you love yourself as well. You know, this book just really, you can't really do any of this unless you're working on yourself, because there's parts of it where she talks about, you know, co-regulation and things like that, being able to help your child breathe and ground themselves and things like that. How are you supposed to explain that? How are you supposed to describe what someone is feeling if you don't even know what it is? You know, like.
Well, also, I'm like, it's a two-way street. If I'm telling you how to regulate your emotions, but I won't do that to regulate mine, then like they're going to see that and be like, when mommy's upset, she tells me to breathe. But when I'm upset, mommy tells me to breathe. But when mommy's upset, she just rages. Yeah. Like they'll do the same thing. Exactly. You know, we're their models. And so.
Yeah. Yep. So kind of just
do
it's
the work for ourselves.
It makes you take a good look in the mirror. Yeah. So we'll kind of get a little bit more into that here in a second. But yeah, it can be tough. But I do want to say that if you're here and you're willing to have those maybe tough thoughts or tough conversations, then you're doing just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing too, at the beginning of this, I was like, oh my gosh, I've made so many mistakes already. And then quickly I was like, no, actually this is very hopeful. And she talks a lot about that in her book too. She's like, it's never too late. You're never too far. You've never like gone down a rabbit hole you can't back out of, you know? So she's like, just start today. Yeah. Implementing some of these things and rewiring. And I think a lot of that comes down to like our own sense of value, our own sense of worth. Do we feel good inside? And then can we then help our children see that in themselves? Yeah.
And she says, even not only is it never too late to start working on implementing some of these things. She says she's even had, you know, parents of adults work through some of these things with their adult children, right? And it's been beneficial. And I could totally imagine that, and things that I've worked through with my own parents and things like that. Absolutely. But she says specifically that repair is also never too late. So if you feel like you're too far down that path, that's absolutely not true. There's always time to repair, to be able to work through those things, to apologize. I think that maybe that's a little new, to be able to apologize to your child, and it's maybe it's a skill that we aren't as familiar with. Being able to, you know, apologize to a 2-year-old, things like that.
Apologizing to an adult child too. Like that's hard.
Yeah.
But I think people underestimate how far an apology can go. Even a simple one. Yeah. For something that someone's held on to for years. Yeah. It's huge.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
That it's never too late to try and repair things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if we work on it, because we have little kids, you know, I feel like if we kind of create the habits now, by the time they are adults, it won't be that difficult, hopefully, for us to be able to apologize, because we're already kind of like trying to work on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
Yep. She also talks about how silliness, playfulness is really important within parent-child relationships. She says that this builds connection capital. This was one of my favorite things. This is specifically like a parenting kind of thing. But she says it's basically a bank of connection that you can use when you're needing to ask your child to do something maybe that's hard, like, you know, screen time, or having to go take a nap. That was a tough one today. Things like that. So Leo and I went to Costco today, and we went around, ate all the little samples, It was a little later than maybe it should have been because it's kind of right around his nap time. So he was going to go down for his nap a little bit later, meaning that he was maybe a little overstimulated.
Yeah, overtired.
He was a little overtired. And he's in kind of this weird age where sometimes he takes a nap, sometimes he doesn't. But I try to opt for the nap because he's usually grumpy when he doesn't take it.
You can still tell that like it benefits him.
It's still beneficial, yeah. And so we, had spent all this time together and had kind of built up that connection capital is what she calls it, right? Where it's my little bank. So that way when it was time to go down for a nap, he would still know I still love you. You're still a good kid. I know that you're just extra tired right now and your body is just trying to fight it. But I'm going to help you go to sleep. And he eventually did and it was fine. But I think that's a really good example of that connection capital thing.
Yeah, I love that.
So.
The other thing I think is that as adults, it's just really easy to get so swept up in responsibility. We have a lot on our plates. And a lot of it is very serious. And it has to be, like you said, like we are still in charge of keeping our families safe, making sure they're fed, making sure that we have money and homes and all the things that we need to do. And so silliness, I think, often gets put on the back burner or just completely thrown out the window because it's like, no, like life is tough. Life is serious. Life is survival. But not just in parent-child relationships, even in spouse relationships, remembering to have fun with your person, remembering I like you as a human being.
Yeah.
And not just as this like parenting person, that we do this together and that's it. It's so important. It's important for your kids to see you having fun with your spouse. It's so important for you to have fun with every member of the family and just with yourself.
Yeah.
So many times when I'm getting real in a tiffy, I'm like, I maybe need to go take a walk or have a dance out party.
That's my favorite.
Because usually that will help remind me like, okay, we could be silly. It's all good. That little thing that was super important in my mind that was like bending me into a pretzel is okay. Yeah. We're good. Silliness can unravel lots of things.
Absolutely. I read this thing from a different parenting person where they were just saying that they called it magic time, where they gave their kid 5 minutes of connection every day. I think it was simply on purpose, where she talks about how if you spend 5 minutes a day with your kid, letting them lead the play, then
she talks about that in here too.
I think she does too. Maybe it's whole brain child as well.
Yeah, I think they all talk about
it. I think it all kind of converges. But the idea is that if you have no phone, child-led play for at least 5 minutes every day, like the bad behaviors, the quote-unquote bad behaviors, right, will basically disappear. Yeah. And I mean, not to say that like I have perfect children, because I don't, and I am very much not a perfect person, but I have noticed that intentionally spending time with my child does cut out a lot of maybe not so fun behaviors kind of thing.
No, the more connection you have is an antidote for tantrums.
Right.
Like disrest, whatever it might be.
And I think it also helps you to tune into your child more, because you can read them better. And I feel like
they feel seen.
Yeah.
Which is ultimately what we all want as human beings.
Yep. And I totally agree. that playfulness, silliness needs to be thriving in your home, not just with your children, but also in your marriage, your spouse, your partner, whoever. I think that having that kind of safety. Yeah. I think it takes safety to be able to be playful and silly. So,
but genuinely, I want you to ask yourself right now, when is the last time you had like a good hearty laugh? Like almost cried because you laughed so hard? And if the answer is a long, long time ago, or I can't remember, like what can you do to implement that into your life? Yeah. Because it is medicine for our souls. Yeah. Joy, silliness, play, it is medicine for the hardness of life that just is inevitable.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that we kind of have talked about before and absolutely love, at least for me, this was kind of like a turning point in my life, was when I learned about Brene Brown's idea of shame. And she says that the antidote to shame is vulnerability, right? Some of the examples that Dr. Becky talks about is because she gives so many examples. That is one of my favorite parts of this book. Is she gives so many examples.
Like, let me walk you through a real scenario
Constantly. And I'm like, okay, I can visualize it. That makes so much more sense. Okay, thank you. But she talks about kind of giving examples where you've gone through something similar with your child. Your child is struggling with something. Your husband, whoever, is struggling with something. They're sharing this hard thing with you. You've been able to kind of maybe draw some of that out of them. And they're feeling that shame, and you want to help dissipate that. And the way that you do that is you let them know, I've kind of been through something similar. You know, this is what I've been through, and this is what I did that helped maybe, or maybe this is how I felt during that, you know, and I see that you're feeling those same things. And I just want to let you know that you're still a good human. You're still doing your best, and I'm really proud of you, and I still love you no matter what. Oh my goodness. I love that.
It wasn't even always shame necessarily, but this thought keeps creeping up. When I was younger and I was really sad when I would have like a breakup from a relationship, I would feel just like, I mean, I probably felt shame as well. Like, if I was better, then like, you know, we would have stayed together, and like how embarrassing, you know, or whatever. But you feel really sad. And I remember I would always want to go talk to my dad because I knew he had experienced very similar feelings to what I had experienced, because he was vulnerable with me and he shared with me, this breakup made me feel this way. And he even let me read his journals, you know, and like see the depth of his emotion, the depth of his struggles. And so I was able to really connect to him during those hard moments, and able to pull myself out of some deep holes, because I was like, he's gotten through this. He's felt the same way as me. It's okay. I'm going to be okay. And we were able to connect on that level. Like, I think of that all the time, because as silly as that example is, like a breakup, I mean, that's not silly, but it feels silly looking back now, because I'm in a happy, committed, loving relationship. I'm like, wow, I really like beat myself up, you know, over those things. But I'm really glad I had those experiences, because it connected me to my dad in such an amazing way and helped me be able to regulate that emotion and process it in a really healthy way. And so I love that.
That connection, that vulnerability is what allowed you to move through it maybe better.
Yeah.
I do have to say also, just as a side note, it is so weird that someone broke up with you. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So bizarre. I will never get over it.
Side note.
That dude lives in my burn book. Okay. In my brain.
My bangs that I currently have. One of the guys I was dating, this has nothing to do with this book at all. This is just a complete tangent. But one of the guys I was dating, because you're saying this right now, he saw a picture of me in high school where I had front bangs. And he was like, ew, if you had front bangs right now, I would literally not date you. Can you believe that?
No.
So now I have front bangs because I think I'm cute in them.
Who are these weirdos?
Also, like, get off my back. You do whatever you want with your hair. I'll do whatever I want with my hair. We only live once. Hair is fun.
Also, do they not realize who they're trying to talk to? These dudes.
I was going to say something mean, but I'm not going to.
They don't understand how dumb they are. Okay. That was as nice as I could be. Anywho. I also kind of had a similar experience with someone really close to me who was expressing some really hard emotions, some new emotions, some new experiences for this person. And it was a big deal that they were feeling in this, that they were sharing this. And I'm trying to figure out what I wrote. Oh yeah. A lot of times, even we've talked about this, but a lot of times we have these kind of tornadoes in our brains. If you've watched Inside Out 2, we've kind of talked about those already, but if you watched Inside Out 2, there's a panic attack that is so perfectly illustrated. Oh, it's so beautiful. How it feels to just like have a tornado going on in your brain. That's literally what it feels like. Where your thoughts are spiraling and it affects your entire body and your life, right? Your heart hurts. Your body is so tense, and just different parts of it just hurts to have that kind of anxiety running through you. When they were able to finally let go of some of this and kind of just tell me what was going on.
Like actually put a voice to it.
It was like it dissipated. It was like all of a sudden, oh, that wasn't real. Like it was real what I was feeling, but why I was feeling it wasn't actually real or valid. And being able to just say it lets go of the shame spiral. It lets go of the anxiety. Maybe not 100%, but I think shame likes to be hidden.
Yeah.
I think shame lives in our mind.
It likes to eat at you from like the dark crevices of your soul and your body, you know?
So being able to just talk about it, I feel like, at least from what I observed, it felt like the shame pretty much disappeared.
Well, I've even had that situation with you and my sister Megan at one point.
Yeah.
Recently postpartum and just losing my mind and was having such a hard time. And I kept trying to internally just deal with it all myself because like I wanted to be strong. Yeah. And we've talked all about that before as well. But it wasn't until I finally was like, I'm going to be vulnerable. I just burst into tears, told you guys everything that was going on in my mind. It was like you had shined a light into the darkness, and then the darkness couldn't be there anymore because that light was swallowing it up. And it was so helpful. So I think that's a really, really key part, is that connection and that vulnerability really can like dissipate darkness. And I think shame is quote unquote kind of a darkness inside of us.
Which I think just goes to show you that you think that one of the main reasons we are even here on this earth is to be able to connect with each other. Yeah. Because I don't think shame goes away without other people. Yeah. Ooh, that one might be tough to swallow. But I don't think we can just process shame by ourselves. I think we have to talk it out. Yeah. I don't think we can just get rid of it.
And you need hugs and all kinds of things for it. You know, like I truly believe that we are not supposed to be solitary creatures. We weren't sent to earth to be alone. Like, I don't think it's good for anyone to be completely alone all the time and always, you know. We crave relationships. We crave connection. It really is all about the people in our life. Yeah. So I love that.
Which kind of goes on to the introspection part of it.
Yes.
Is we're all about everyone is good inside. Everyone is doing their best. We can all connect with each other. We can see people deeper than the surface level behaviors, right? Yeah. So how do we implement that in our own selves to then be able to give that to our spouses and our children?
Yep. Ooh. Those are the questions. Thinking about your own level of vulnerability with yourself, with others. Are you able to let people in? Are you able to let your spouse or your partner or a trusted friend see every part of you? And are you even able to see every part of yourself? I think
without shame.
Yes.
Without shame.
And I don't think any one of us is perfect at this. But definitely I think striving to get better at that is going to aid us. Like, are you scared to be yourself because of your own expectations, because of your own shame, whatever it may be? Some things that it talks about in the book for how to kind of combat some of this is to really take time to validate yourself. And like we have said, to share those pieces and those scary, dark places with other people. Trust them. Find someone you can trust. If you don't have anyone close in your life and you need to go talk to a professional, do that. Like whatever it may be, it's a gift you can give to yourself to really try to balance this healthy validation in close relationships. And it does take practice. It takes a lot of rewiring. It is not something that is inexplicably easy. No. I would say it's taken me a long time. Yeah. And I still feel like I have so much more to go. Yeah. You know?
Agreed. Definitely so much more to go.
But if we can start doing this with our children especially, and like really reminding them of the goodness that they have, pointing that out and helping them see that, helping them know it's there because it is there. And they're so, so special. But practice talking to yourself kindly. Practice writing thoughts down. like practice being curious about what you're feeling or what you believe or what you think randomly.
Yeah.
Instead of just like attacking yourself, I think curiosity is really, really important. Being like, that's interesting. I wonder why I'm thinking that right now.
You can apply the Ted Lasso to yourself.
Yes.
Not just to other people.
Which, if you have not seen that, go watch Ted Lasso on Apple TV.
Maybe
or
share that part.
We'll share the scene in our stories because it is so good. But asking yourself, does this thought or feeling serve me? Is it a fact? Is it true? Like, can I get rid of it on my own? Do I need outside help?
What's the worst case scenario, maybe?
Yeah.
With what I'm feeling?
Or do I just let this thought exist and that's okay?
Yeah.
Like, that's there. Doesn't define me and who I am. We'll just let that ride out. Some other ideas are writing letters to your younger self or to your future self. For me, I do less like formal letters and I just mainly journal it all. And that's been really, really helpful for me. Feels less formal personally, where I don't have to be like, Dear Kylie, because I don't know, sometimes that feels very formal.
Yeah.
I'm already talking to myself in my journal anyway. But being in the moment, reflecting on everything you've already overcome and accomplished, making sure you actually see the growth and not just, oh my gosh, I'm still not where I want to be. That's also so helpful.
Yeah.
And then another one that we talked about is thanking God or whatever high power you believe in for creating opportunities, for creating you, for opening your mind, for giving you a chance to grow, and just let that love and that gratitude really fill you up.
One of the things that really stuck out to me and has hit me so hard is she says in the book that basically you can't give to other people what you can't give to yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. She says you can only give patience in the same capacity that you can give patience to yourself to other people, if that makes sense. That was kind of confusing. But if you don't have patience for yourself, you will not have patience for other people. And I feel like I've been trying to do it wrong. I feel like I'm not very patient with myself.
But you're trying to build that with other people. You're like, I'll be so patient with you. But then for me, unacceptable.
Right. It's all related. It's all coordinated. I don't know the word for that, but it's all connected. That in order to be able to give those parts of yourself to other people, you've got to be doing that for yourself. In order to be able to show your kid how to regulate themselves, you got to be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
In order to be able to encourage vulnerability from your spouse or your child, you have to be vulnerable. You have to. And so being able to recognize where you're at in your own scale, in your own life, is paramount to be able to make those connections, to go deeper and things like that. So things to think about for sure. One of my favorite examples of kind of each of these pieces is Bluey. We love Bluey so much. I love Bluey because the episodes are like 7 minutes. They're so short, but they jam pack as many lessons as they can into each episode. There's silliness, there's playfulness, there's vulnerability galore in
there's
these.
Like hardship.
Oh, it's so good. There's real life experiences in Bluey. So if you haven't watched it, please go watch it because it'll make anyone cry. It makes everyone cry, I feel like. But I have a feeling that a lot of people have watched it. So one of my favorite episodes that kind of illustrates these different sections is dance mode. So Bingo, there's Bluey and Bingo. Bluey's the older sister. She's maybe a little steamrollery. And with Bingo, who's a little more reserved, she's kind of quiet. But she's super sweet, super fun, loves her older sister. It's so cute. But Bingo has earned, I think, 5 dance modes where she can like push a button and her family has to randomly burst into dance. Whether there's music or not, they just have to like start dancing. But for some reason, her family members keep stealing the dance modes. And she's like, her mom's like, ooh, I'm going to turn on dance mode for your dad or whatever during this thing. And so by the end, Bingo doesn't really have any chances to do dance mode with her family. Everyone is kind of stealing them, and she gets kind of sad. She gets kind of dejected. She gets kind of quiet. And then they kind of notice that she's kind of turned into herself. Yeah. She's like 4, okay? And I just think of like my little 3.5-year-old when he gets kind of quiet and I can't really, pull something out of him.
Yeah.
And they're trying to decipher what's really going on, like why she's kind of dejected now. And they realize they were kind of steamrolling her. They were stealing her dance modes. She didn't get to really do anything with them. She just wanted to have some fun with her family, and they were kind of rolling all over. Yeah. And so then she's able to kind of find her voice, and she's able to say, yeah, that's what was going on. And they're like, we were probably making you feel bad that we were kind of stealing that from you. And she's like, yeah, you kind of were. And she's able to kind of find her voice, and it's really sweet. And then they get kind of silly in their apology. They're very sincere in their apology, but then they kind of get silly, and they're like, okay, humor into it. We need to have a whole family dance mode where basically Bingo gets to make fun of all of us for being silly and, kind of steamrolling her. And they try to be better about Bingo just being herself and allowing her to maybe have some control, that autonomy, being vulnerable. And even if she is maybe a little quieter and not as like, I don't know, just big as her family. Yeah. All of her family members are really big, and she's just kind of quiet. So anywho, if you haven't seen that episode, we'll share it. It's really cute. Yeah. But it's just a really good example of maybe being able to decipher what's really going on, being able to repair, being able to connect and incorporate that silliness and playfulness into your family and your life. So that's my little Bluey reference there. But we just want to end with kind of some things to remember. Some important facts. We have 1, you are good inside no matter what. Like Kylie said, out of the box. You are a good human doing your very best with the tools that you have, with who you are, with the experiences that you bring to your life. You are good. And you are good enough. Your best is good enough. I think that that's something we don't tell ourselves enough and validate ourselves enough with. Others are also doing their best. It may be hard sometimes to give them that most generous interpretation. But if you're having a hard time deciphering what the most generous interpretation could be, you can kind of come back to that one and saying they're doing their best. They are good inside as well. Yeah. And you can acknowledge this while also maintaining boundaries. Just want to throw that out there. That's a completely different topic though for a different episode. But hopefully this episode left you feeling maybe refreshed, hopeful, like we did. Yeah. After reading this book, I felt like every single chapter just brought a new wave of feeling hope and the desire to just be more vulnerable, to be more fun, to be more connective. Yeah. Those are all things I want in my life.
Yeah. I 100% agree. Like I said, I think everyone should read this. I think we all need the reminder that we are inherently good, that every relationship we have in our life deserves time and attention and this kind of perspective of they're a good person. And I think it's just going to help us deepen our connections and our relationships.
Yeah. We kind of have talked about this before, but I just wonder what life is going to look like when our kids who have grown up with this isn't a permissive parenting type of style. You can still have those boundaries with your kids. And she talks all about that in the book. We didn't even get into any of that.
No, there's so much more.
So much more. But fostering that authority, that autonomy, that confidence. Like, I cannot wait to see what the world looks like when we have even more children that have grown into adults that truly believe that they are just deep down good inside. Yeah. I want that. I want that for my kids. I want that for myself. I want that for the world.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. You've got this. You're doing amazing. We love you guys. Have a great week.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Living Big podcast. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
Join us on Instagram and TikTok for all the things, from relatable mom memes to fun girls' night ideas with your besties. See you next week.